I walked into that clubhouse, and Moose, I'll never forget this. You came up to me, you gave me, it wasn't a hug, it was a handshake at that point, but you said, "Welcome to the Royals, we're gonna win the World Series."
We were explaining to everybody the CY hug and how nobody can make us feel small, and then you don't get that like full wraparound, like that dad hug. CY. That's the best hug in the game.
It
is.
is.
Best hug in the
I
game.
love it. Well, you guys are easy to hug. I like it.
Chris Young. So Chris Young, a guy that we've looked up to on and off the field. Moose and I got the opportunity to be teammates with him. I'm pretty sure you as well in Kansas
Coach
City.
in the back end,
Oh, yeah.
Sledge as well. So CY is a guy that the ultimate flip the switch guy. I mean, nicest guy in the world, professional, but a competitor when it's time to go. When the lights are on, I mean a competitor. And from the time you were in the long relief role, I'll never forget, it was like an 8-1 ball game. CY comes in, fired up in the dugout, says, "Come on, boys, we're winning this game." And it was with some passion, too. And I bought in immediately. So, CY, I've always looked up to you on and off the field. You know, you, Dayton, were the first people that I called, and Moose, after I got released. And it was just for advice, because that's how much I looked up to you and you guys. So, your perspective on baseball, I mean, you've been an all-star player, a World Series champion, a champion as a GM, you've worked in the office. I mean, your perspective post-playing is what I'm so interested about. So, you know, we want to walk through everything, but let's start with the post-playing, because to me, that's so interesting. So that perspective from the office and as a GM, as players, what are we missing and what do we not know yet about baseball?
Oh man, Haas, well, you've thrown a lot at me here. I mean, I
got big. I've been grabbing that question for 3 weeks, dude.
When he starts going, he's going.
Oh, I don't have all the answers, first of all, but let me just say this. You know, when I got the chance to play with you guys and obviously winning a championship, it was one of the most special times in my life. And for me, that moment came at a point at which I was kind of down on the game, frankly. I mean, I've told Dayton this before, and the year before in Seattle, I had won comeback player of the year, and then that off season into 2015 couldn't get a job. And I remember sitting at home the off season of 14. We had just missed the playoffs in Seattle, and I love playoff baseball. I mean, I am glued to it. And watching that 2014 team play and see the way you guys played for each other and the camaraderie and the passion and the fight, and I was attracted to it. I was like, damn, that's a team I'd like to play for. And then that off season, it kind of comes and goes, and it was March 5th or 6th, and I got a call from Dayton. I was still at home without a job. I mean, I'd won comeback player of the year and didn't have a job, a big league opportunity. And I got a call from Dayton saying, "We can't pay you much, but we'd love to have you come." And I knew this is where I wanted to be. It's where I needed to be. And I walked into that clubhouse, and Moose, I'll never forget this. You came up to me, you gave me, it wasn't a hug, it was a handshake at that point, but you said, "Welcome to the Royals, we're gonna win the World Series." And I called home and I said, the vibe in this clubhouse is different than anywhere I've ever been, and this team's on a mission, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. So literally, that was my introduction to you guys. And to go through that season and to see it come to fruition, you ask me about the game today and what you're missing. Like, you're not missing anything. The game today is equally as good as when we went through it in 2015. I mean, the talent is, in my opinion, better than ever, but the principles of the game still remain the same, and that's what makes baseball great. That's, to me, the essence of the game, the beauty of it, and it's about the team. It's about the group coming together as one and playing for the right reasons. And it's not the most talented teams that win year in, year out. It's the right collection of guys who play for the right reasons. And that, to me, is the beauty of it.
So you ended right there talking about the beauty of baseball. In your opening statement, you're saying how there was a time in your career you were down on the game.
Yeah.
Talk about a little bit more. What did you mean you're down on the game?
Well, I had been through a series of injuries. I had been through, it was on a personal level. I love the sport, and there's so many great things about the sport, but on a personal level, I felt like, I have kind of two mantras that govern my career. The first of which is it's a performance-based game, and secondly, the game owes you nothing. And I felt like I had had this great year, bounce back, comeback player of the year, and literally didn't have a major league job opportunity. And it was really hard for me to rationalize that in my head. And for whatever reason, and now I'm on the other end of it, and I see players kind of falling through the cracks, and the market treats certain guys differently and for whatever reasons. But at that time, going through it, I was resentful. I was bitter, and coming to Kansas City allowed me to leave all that in the past, and it sort of reinvigorated me in a way that I needed at that point personally.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I felt the same thing when I walked into that clubhouse. I was there in 16, the year after they won the World Series, and obviously they were on the high of the World Series, but there was a different feel in that clubhouse. And you talked about how it's not about the best players, but how, as a GM, do you then weave your way through not only the talent, but the personalities and how they're going to mix, and is that the toughest part of the job?
Well, Moilo, I mean, first of all, I want to start by saying, like, I don't have it all figured out. I mean, I don't. I have what I believe are kind of the foundational or principal elements of constructing a roster, but by no means, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But to your point, one of the ones I subscribe to immensely, and this is true of really every championship team I've been a part of, whether it was in youth sports, high school, minor leagues, college, minor leagues, and then 2015, is that it's about the collective group. It's about the bond, the chemistry, the culture. And I will always take culture over talent. And maybe I sort of swing too far on the culture side, but I really believe it's about the right group of people coming together and playing for each other. And when you have that, it's special, and it can overcome, the most talented teams if they don't have that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for all of us, Dayton was a mentor for all of us going forward in our careers. And, for you, obviously being a general manager now, how much has Dayton influenced you in what you do, and how much of your playing career has helped you in the general managing market? Again, we talked about you being a competitor, and I know when you're up in the box competing up there with the boys on the field, just in a different way now.
Yeah, well, Moose, first of all, to answer the first question, we could spend a whole hour talking about Dayton. Right. I mean, I really, I think he means as much to me as he has to you guys. And now to work with him in this capacity, somebody that I've looked up to immensely, and who really kind of, like I said, helped me get past some of the resentment and bitterness that I had in the game, and gave me this opportunity and this experience that I am forever grateful for. And now to have the opportunity to work with him on a daily basis, one, he keeps me sane because there's so many challenges that come with this job. And even on the drive over this morning, he got to hear me vent about a number of things that just haven't gone perfectly the last few days, and he kind of walks me through it. So he's just an unbelievable sounding board. His values and ethics are as high as anybody I've ever met in my life, and so you're going to get really sound, thoughtful advice every time you talk to him. And just one of the most rewarding, gratifying things that I've ever gotten to experience in my life was in 2015, Dayton presented me with my World Series ring. And then in 2024, last year, at the beginning of the year, I was able to present Dayton with a World Series ring. And for me, it was one of the most touching, cool things that I could have ever asked for, professionally and personally. And so we shared some tears and some laughs and some big hugs. And but he just means more to me than I can even state. And to have him by my side at all times, just giving me sound advice and helping me and really taking care of things that I'm not even aware of. Dayton is a culture person, as you guys know, and everybody in our organization gravitates towards it, to him. And I'm not even around for most of the conversations and the impact he has, and he'll downplay it when you talk to him, but his impact on our team is immense, and everybody loves him universally throughout the game.
Yeah, that's something you never really see. Like, the stories you don't hear are like that CY being able to present Dayton his championship ring. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And as in a leadership role, you have to have the ability to talk to somebody that you feel that you can vent to, because you being the guy, being the leader, I'm sure there's a presence you have to maintain, especially in the building, amongst the players, amongst your coach. So having Dayton, a guy that you played for, a guy that you feel comfortable venting, and you're going to get complete truth. He's going to be fully transparent with everything. And as a leader in that role, that's got to be nice to have.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's what's been really interesting in working with different leaders and head coaches in different sports. From what I've seen, what they've told me is it's a very lonely position, especially when you're at the top. And because of the power dynamics, a lot of times, what I've heard is they've told me that they can't even share sometimes vents or little just disruptions in attitude, or they're little frustrations because people might take it and say, oh, that's the way he feels, or we need to go and we need to change things, when he's saying, no, I'm just thinking out loud. And so to have someone like that, I bet it's very valuable.
Yeah, it's one of the lessons I had to learn early on in the job is that I had actually a minor league coach come to me and tell me, just remember, all eyes are on you at all times. And I don't think of myself as that. I don't think of myself as the leader, as the person who everybody should be following or watching. I view this as like a collective group, and I have to make decisions and I have the final say in a lot of things, but it's about us collectively. So I don't put myself like on this pedestal that people are observing at all times, but the reality is there is some truth to that. And so any small thing that you say or any action or behavior that you demonstrate can be interpreted differently. And so you do have to be cognizant of the image you're projecting to your people. And I want to be authentic, I want to be real, but coming back to Dayton, and one of the things he told me early on is like you have to find the group that you can be yourself with too, and it has to be a smaller, tighter group at times. But I always say one of the things I love about Bruce Bochy, Dayton Moore, and the rest of our executive group and the coaches, and you guys will appreciate this because you all have seen me at my worst, and they get to see me at my worst, and that's something to be said about people that you can, the worst version of yourself can come out with people you trust. And they know that it's for the right reasons, and they still love you, and they put up with you and tolerate you, and then they support you and help you get past it. And it's one of the things I appreciate greatly about our group is that we support each other in that manner.
So interested in the transition out of being a player into the front office, because I took on a manager's role a couple of years ago, and one of the toughest things that I had was managing guys that I'd played with and having that dynamic switch in an instant and me have to be this authority role instead of just one of the boys. I had a real tough time with that.
Yeah, it's one of the things I've struggled with too, because I think ultimately, and it's not just the former teammates, which those are extra hard.
Right.
But it's also, I have great compassion and empathy for all players. I mean, Moose, your question a minute ago, which I avoided and didn't answer, was spot on. We've played this game. We know how hard it is. The game is, to me, it's the hardest sport in the world because you deal with failure constantly. And you have to truly love it to continue coming back to experience this failure that you're going to have in the game of baseball. And I have great empathy for our players who, I know how hard this is. I know what they're going through. I know the stresses that they have on their personal life. I know right now in spring training when they're going home and they're analyzing every box score and looking at every at bat for other players on the roster and how they performed and what that means for them. And I've been in their shoes. I get it. And, but with that, I also understand the standards too. I know what it takes, and I know that these guys who do become great players and experience championships, I know what that looks like too. And so there's an accountability that you have to have. And Moilo, to your point, that accountability, those conversations are not always easy ones, especially with former teammates. But the reality is that I feel like players respect people who exhibit humility, honesty, authenticity, and transparency. And that's how I try to approach every conversation. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do.
And as a player, you can relate because, I remember in 2018, you in San Diego, if it was a true competition, you had every right to be on that team. So I'm sure you can relate as a player, now as a GM. And in my opinion, your guys' culture, why that culture is so strong is because, like Dayton, I feel like that relatability for you understands these players just want truth. And if you're upfront and honest with these guys, at the end of the day, that's what they respect. And one thing, when I was with the Cubs, I noticed we played you guys second series of the year in Josh Young, third baseman. He was a rookie third baseman, broke with the team, 0 for 5 that game. I think it's one of the last games of the series, and you guys, they're up 8-9 runs, something like that. 0 for 5, and he's barreled 3 balls. Last at bat of the game, barrels the ball, diving catch, goes to give his helmet to the coach, head down, frustrated a little bit, whatever. His teammate brings him a glove. He's fired up with his teammate, congratulating him on a hit. His energy was up. They went after the game, slap hands. He's fired up, and I made it a point to watch it, after the game just because I wanted to see how he was going to carry himself. So I remember seeing you, Liz, and the family after the game with Case and saying, this kid is going to be good, man. Like, for him to be so unselfish as a player, wants to win, and to see how he carried himself after that was like solidified it for me. And I haven't even seen him play much. I know he's talented, but like that makeup, I know solidified it for you because Wyatt, Carter. You've called up some young guys, and I'm sure that's got to play a big role in that decision to call them up.
Hawes, it kind of gives me chills to hear you say some of the things. We just last week had a meeting with our pro scouting department, and I spent a lot of time talking to them about a lot of the things that I look for and what matters in the reports that they give me, and the things that you just touched on. None of those are related to the player's specific skill set or his performance, right?
Upgradable.
Yeah. It's the intangibles. It's how do you handle failure, and how do you handle success at times, and who you are and your character, and we look for things on the field or off the field that can help us identify those traits, because there's one of the great things about the sport now is that there's a lot of information, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of objective things that can tell us who the player is, but they can't. That doesn't necessarily define the player's character, and you all know that success is often defined by the intangibles and the character of the player equally as much as it is the talent of the player. And so we do look for those things, and the things you just described. JJ is a perfect example. He's a winning spirit, a winning person, and he's going to reach his full potential. I can't tell you what that is. Is this a Hall of Fame caliber player, or a guy who is going to have a short period of success in the big leagues? I can't say that. My hope is that it's going to be a long career, but I can tell you he's going to reach his full potential because of a lot of the things, the attributes that you just described, and those are the things that I love looking for in players.
And handling success is a big one I always talk to you about. Everyone always says, how do they handle failure? How do they handle failure? In the big leagues, I think how you handle success has a big thing to do with it as well, because you have that success, even if it's for a month or whatever it is, everybody loves you, and you can very easily change and start acting differently. So that's something I think that people are definitely aware of as well.
Again, but to your point, that speaks to your character, right? It's who you are, it's who you are, and that shouldn't change whether you're. It's one of the things I tell our players all the time. I love telling our young minor leaguers this exactly, that your identity is not attached to your successes and failures as a player. Your identity is your character, and who you are is not defined by whether you're playing great or you're playing poorly. So disassociate those two. Don't connect those two, because if you do, you won't be able to handle either.
That is so true. I love that. We were recently talking. I was talking to an athlete. There's a quote we were discussing. We're talking about, it says something about butterflies. Instead of chasing butterflies, build a garden so you can attract butterflies.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's identity. It's basically build the best version of yourself. And an exercise that we start off with, especially with professional athletes at the highest level, is a series of I am statements. We talked to one athlete before. We said, who are you aside from being a baseball player? Take baseball away.
Right.
Who are you as a man?
Yeah.
And then it's really neat how some players immediately they can go and talk about it, and some are like, I don't know. Okay, we got some work to do. Let's say you are more than just a player, but sometimes that's hard. And in your opinion, why is that so important for a player, or probably even a staff member, a member of the front office? Why is that important to identify?
Well, I think ultimately, as we stated earlier, that the game, there's so much failure in the game. And so if you let failure define you, you're never going to overcome it. In my opinion, it's why the game's so hard. And if that becomes your identity, it's going to be hard to just continue coming back. I say often the hardest thing about being a major league player is, on any given night, being the worst player on the field in front of 40,000 fans, and then showing up the next day and having the confidence to walk back out there and believe that you're not the worst again. And I think it's a hard thing to do, but I think if your identity is attached to your performance, it's going to be hard to do that, right? It's going to be hard to believe and to have the confidence, conviction that you can, hey, I'm going to get it done tonight. But if you can separate the two and understand that, hey, who I am is not what I do, then I think it allows you to kind of reset and come back the next day with a clear head and confidence that, okay, I'm going to be good tonight and I'm going to get it done. I think it's a really important thing, especially in our sport.
Was there ever a time where that was hard for you to separate, or were you always able to separate?
100%. I think having kids helped me. I think I was 27 when our first was born. And at that point, I realized who I am at the field or between the lines is not and you pointed it out, I can be a real jerk between the lines.
I didn't say it.
We loved it though.
But who I am between the lines is not who I want to be at home. And so having children really helped me understand a bigger perspective in life. It took me a while to get to that point, though. I mean, I so badly wanted this dream of being a major league player and was chasing it and working hard and pursuing it every way I knew how in terms of doing things the right way, and oftentimes it wasn't leading to immediate success, and that was a hard thing for me as a younger player in the minor leagues especially when I saw guys that maybe weren't putting in as much time or effort and just thinking like, why are they having success and I'm not? And so when I didn't do well, it was hard to really separate my identity from my performance. But as I grew older, I realized that, hey, just because I have a bad game doesn't mean I'm, a failure in these other areas. Like, I'll keep doing things the right way, and eventually it's going to pay off.
Yeah, that's what Haas says about me. He said the best version of when I became myself was when I had Mila, because you guys know, I was always so hard on myself. I always expected the best out of myself. But once I was able to be like, you know what, my daughter doesn't care if I came home and went 0 for 5. Like, she just wants her dad around, and she just wants to play with dad and have fun. And that's like, for me, that was when I became the best version of who I was off the field. And being able to separate it, like you said, was so important for the rest of my career, because I couldn't go through the rest of my career beating my helmet every single day, and to be able to come home and have that separation was just insanely huge.
Let me ask you guys this. I'm curious from your perspective, especially you guys, because 2014.
Oh my God, I'm in the hot seat.
How much did winning validate you guys in your mind?
Extreme. Like, it made me feel accomplished, right?
Yeah.
Like, I told Dayton when he first drafted me, we were up in the front office, I said, we're going to win a World Series here. And that's my only goal, is like, we're going to win a World Series in Kansas City, and we're going to do it. So from the first day I got drafted till that point, I was like, my only focus in the minor leagues was to win, and we won at every level. And to take that into the big leagues and actually accomplish that goal with the Kansas City Royals, smaller market team, was just like validating for me.
Yeah, same. And for me, what gave me even more confident was the way we all handled it. I feel like all the way up from the minor leagues, and the message that Dayton and everybody gave us was, it was always about getting to the big leagues and winning. So our goals were above and beyond, and it wasn't anything individual, because we all felt as a group that was on us to be the group that changed it. It was always the group. So it was never anything individual. And when we did go on that run in 2014, I'll never forget it. It was John Lester in the wild card game, and we're in the hitters meeting, and Rusty is breaking down that, you guys have heard it from me before, that John Lester hasn't picked off in 3 years.
Get to first base.
So just get to first base. We're stealing. Don't even worry about him picking off. We're stealing. We got down 7 runs, or 7-3 in the 8th inning. We come back because we stick to this game plan. As an offense, we trusted it for a full 9 innings. So then, I think from that game, that it was Weaver, we're like, all right, what's the game plan now? What's the trick? How are we going to do this? So that next year, our offense understood this is a 9 versus 1 approach. So then when we know our game plan, and it could be to see a breaking ball instead of here, way up here. So when Moose lays off the breaking ball in the dirt, I'm fired up for him because I know his approach. It's a small win. Then it gets back to the dugout. Hey, way to lay off that breaking ball, dude. Let's go. Maybe he swung at some before. So that build, I think we were building each other up. I felt like it was all attacked as a group. And ultimately, it was just because of the culture that was created. And the championship really solidified that our game planning, our routine was a championship routine.
And our belief in each other, too. Like, to go out there every single day for 162 and believe the guy next to you. We had the saying, keep the line moving, right? In order to do that, like, you got to believe in that guy behind you. Like, even if you fail, that guy behind you is getting the job done no matter what. Whether it be, we're going to sack bunt here, or I'm going to give myself up, hit a ground ball to second base. I know that whoever's behind me is going to get that run in because of what we built internally in the clubhouse, outside, going to dinners, all that other stuff. I believed in the fact that was going to get done.
You guys had the benefit of coming up together and playing for a long period of time. Do you think it's possible to get that same sort of camaraderie mentality on a team that's got changing parts coming in all the time? You think it's about the core four, the core value of the team, the front offices, whether it's a organizational wide strategy, or you think it just comes from the leaders and players in the clubhouse?
I think both. I think, I mean, he could probably speak on this a lot more, but like when you bring guys into a clubhouse, you want guys that are going to fit good with the guys you already have in there and to be able to mesh well and also be great players. But what you guys build in the clubhouse, like it spills out onto the field. So you don't want to bring somebody in that doesn't really fit in that mold of like character, competitor, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then you bring him in and then it just kind of translates initially onto the field.
I think the welcoming atmosphere you guys provided too, when anybody walked into that clubhouse, wasn't the same thing that I got in our era. Yeah. If you're a new guy coming up, it was kind of like, you need to prove yourself before we accept you. With you guys, it was, we're going to accept you and help. You're going to help us. So,
yeah. Like when you guys came into the clubhouse, like you felt welcome, you felt warm. Now I can go out and be my best self on the field. I don't have to worry about impressing these guys that are already here, proving myself. You went out there immediately, and I'm just one of the boys already. Let's go.
Well, Moose, let me elaborate on my first experience. My first experience was you guys in the clubhouse and setting the expectations, and then I went out on the field and had to throw a bullpen. And I, at this point late in my career, I'm throwing like mid-80s, and I had Yordano Ventura on one side and Danny Duffy on the other, throwing 100 miles an hour. And I thought, they're going to release me today.
Just ripping it.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, when I got back outside, I realized, I better get some outs here.
Right.
Yeah.
That actually leads me. Sorry,
we're all going to do it. I think
that leads me to another question. We were talking about this right before you came in. You're a GM right now. You see a Chris Young with your kind of stuff that you had. You were throwing mid-80s, upper 80s, maybe touch 90. Would you sign a Chris Young right now?
Well, I think you got to recalibrate it a little bit, because I think that, the average velocity, even a few years ago when we were playing, or when you say mid-career, was about, 3 to 4 miles an hour less. So if you kind of calibrate up, don't say it's like, 88 to 90, say it's a low 90s fastball by, by today's standards. Yes, the answer is yes, but I think what we have now with data is a much greater understanding of the unique characteristics or traits that can make a player successful. In fact, one of the players that we have, he's pitching today in Mesa against the Cubs, is a young left-hander named Cody Bradford, who doesn't have an elite fastball, but he has elite extension. He's got a great changeup. He's got the ability to land a curveball, and he has a tremendous makeup and mindset, a competitiveness and an ability to study hitters. And that's going to allow him to have a very successful career. He's got great command. So, Peter, the answer is that yes, I think it's harder now for guys like me to get in the door. But that said, if you can get outs, you can get outs, and you'll have a chance. But we do have a lot more data that can help. I didn't understand what made me good. I just knew that, okay, it's a unique angle, and hitters had a tough time adjusting, and that's what allowed me to succeed a little bit. And I think by the end of my career, the data was helping me understand a little bit more why. Now we know that immediately when scouting a player, but there's no doubt the talent level amongst pitchers it's gotten, the bar is much higher than when I played. So while I wouldn't, I wouldn't sign myself, because I I remember how many home runs I gave up and how hard I got hit, especially at the end of my career. If you can get outs and you can pitch, there's still a place in the game. It's just a little bit harder than it used to be, in my opinion.
So both positions, CY, being in both positions, an executive and a player, knowing the metrics, knowing that, yes, you can identify a lot because of the data. Yeah. You can tell what a fastball does, if it has hop, cut, whatever. And then at the same time, being the player, understanding being a successful pitcher is not about stuff. You know what I mean? You have to be able to, if I got to pound this guy with firm fastballs up, and then I got to spin it here, and then I got to go here, you got to be able to execute that, because guys have holes, got to attack their holes. And then, hey, there's that Miggy, there's that handful guy where we got to just mix it up. He hits everything, right? So what would be your message in evaluating, especially for a coach? Is it just a blend of all of that? The intangibles, the metrics tell a story, but at the same time, you're watching this guy and you're seeing this guy Bradford has pitchability. So
Yeah.
metrics are telling me one thing, but I'm seeing another thing. So is it just
Yeah.
a blend of all that?
It's amazing. I mean, we have these discussions every day. We have it every day. We have players who are recommended by our R&D department based on kind of the metrics alone. And you kind of look at the overall body of work throughout their career, and maybe it hasn't lined up to what the projections suggest. And so you have to kind of rationalize, okay, why are these not evening out? Why are they not on the same level? And so, and it's an art. It's not a science. It's not formulaic. There are so many defining aspects of being successful as a player, which you guys know, and it's not solely about talent or projections. It's about the ability to compete and the aptitude and the staying healthy and being able to read swings as a pitcher, make adjustments as a hitter, and understanding your strengths. I think that's a huge one. It's one of the main ones we preach to our players, is that there are a lot of things that you're not going to be able to, but this is what makes you successful, and these are your strengths. And we're not going to focus too much on trying to improve your weaknesses, but we are going to enhance your strengths, and we're going to double down on those things. And then it's the confidence and conviction, which you guys know is half the battle. The second you lose that, it really, the game is much harder. So, there's so many things that go into it, and we try to identify them all. We try to help the players with it, but there's not a one size fits all approach. There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of different ways to be successful. And I think the biggest thing we try to do is stay open-minded and then really understand a player and what his strengths are and help him with those things.
I'm really interested. What's really fascinating about you and listening to you talk is how much of an emphasis you do put on the makeup and the character and the person, the intangible part of the athlete. How do you guys codify that? Do you have a certain language that all of you who are taking a look at players to, so you're all speaking the same language, because confidence to one person might not be confident, or competitive to this person might not be. How do you?
That's right. I mean, we try to standardize it, and we try to really talk about as an organization in terms of what, and we do. The way we codify it is we say, is this, at the end of the day, is this player a winning player? Does he have the winning characteristics that we think fit the Texas Rangers? And we're not right 100% of the time. I mean, we're wrong, as much as other organizations. But at the end, that's kind of the thing. Like, and when we talk about a winning player has to fit the talent and the objective aspects along with the subjective aspects and characteristics that we try to identify, and those things can be hard. There's not, until those things are quantifiable. That's why, in my opinion, there's real value to the scouting world, because you can't quantify some of the subjective. And sometimes you can be wrong on the subjective too, in that you think a player doesn't exhibit those things, and then all of a sudden he gets into a different environment, and we are all products of our environment, and you put him in the right environment and it clicks and the player blossoms. So we try to stay open-minded with it and just think that, okay, are there enough positives here that if we bring him in and we cultivate the right chemistry and environment, can the players be successful? But there's no perfect science behind those unquantifiable aspects of the player. Yeah.
A lot of it too, I feel like, is as a player, when you see guys go to a different culture, a system, especially speaking from an offensive player, I think it can help an individual so much, because the Texas Rangers, World Series champions last year, you expect to be in the World Series playing in October. So at the end of the day, in the biggest of situations in front of the world, I need to count on this guy. I need to be able to know that he's consistent, and culture starts from the top. With Dayton, the plan was always the plan. Us as a group in the minor leagues, all the way up until a couple years of struggle in the big leagues to a championship, we don't deviate from the plan. It's consistency. So if a player is consistently going away from the plan, how are you going to beat a team like the Dodgers when they have Ohtani and all these guys? I think that was a big criticism last year with the Yankees, was they were trying to just basically play station to station baseball. When you're playing these teams, just like we figured out with the Lester situation, there's a game plan and there's a system that we have to keep and we have to maintain. I'll never forget in Houston, it was one time Correa was on first and Altuve was hitting. And it really, really changed my mind about the Astros and how good and in sync they were as a team, because Altuve whistles to Correa and he just gives him a whistle and he says, hey, hit. So I guess from that point on, it was, hey, we're running on this guy, but this guy is going to give us heaters because I think we're running. So you hit. But they were so in sync as an offense. I mean, if your game plan is to go up there and the catcher, we can expose him, we can run, and I'm on first and I'm running and Moose swings at the first pitch. I mean, these playoff games are won on the pitching side. If this is the hole, and the pitcher thinks he can do something to get him out, that one pitch can be the 2-1 ball game. So those are the differences, I think, that end up coming up in October and that separate.
Yeah.
Nice job. Man.
Absolutely nailed it, dude.
That's a great speech.
Thank you.
But it is, Haas, I think that's an important, what you identified to me as an important component to when you bring a new player in is understanding, all right, here's our plan for this player. Here is why we think this player fits our roster, our organization, and here is what we're asking this player to do to help and to fit in. And sometimes that works and the player buys in. And if, my thing is if you're a good organization, I think the player should have buy-in if he wants to be there. But sometimes it doesn't perfectly work, or he tries it and he doesn't succeed immediately, and you kind of go back to the drawing board. And so, I think the best organizations, and I think this is one of the arts of coaching, in my opinion, is that I really believe the best coaches are psychologists. They're mental skills coaches. They find a way to connect with the human and instill a confidence and conviction and belief in the player, and that allows the player to be successful. And it may not be the most technical coaching, because sometimes your most technical coaches are not the coaches who instill the most confidence. Now, if you get a coach who can coach the technical and the psychological, that's where you have very special coaches. And you have more experience with that than I do.
I completely agree with you. There's a concept in psychology. I think it's preferential susceptibility. That's like that's the term. But essentially, it's people, you're either a dandelion or an orchid. The people are dandelions. Dandelions can grow anywhere. They can grow in concrete. They can grow in street. They don't need special attention. They don't need the right soil. They're going to thrive in their world wherever they grow. Orchids, on the other hand, they need the right temperature. They need the right type of fertilizer. They need the right kind of love. Now, every team you have your dandelions, you have your orchids. You have your dandelions, doesn't matter what coach they have, doesn't matter where we play, doesn't matter they're going to thrive. Like they're gonna do what they do. And then you have your orchids, how they might need some extra love and attention, but if you give them the right temperature and the right extra love and attention, they are going to thrive. And I agree with you, like the best coaches know, okay, who are my dandelions, who are my orchids, who are the ones I literally need to tell them, hey, you're awesome, hey, you look good today. And the other ones, like, I don't need to talk to them. Yes, it's important to talk to everybody, but they're going to be good. They are going to thrive. They're wherever they are. And so, to your point, I completely agree. I think coaches are the best, the really good ones, the best performance process, mental skills psychologists out there. And it's so neat to see them. It's the art and the science of it. I love it.
Yeah, these guys were orchids. I was a weed.
Now I do have a question, a follow-up. So anytime, I was with the military for a while, as these guys know, and I one time I traveled from my base in Texas and I went to a very similar MOS in Germany, very similar unit in Germany. Same culture. From San Antonio to Germany, and then I went to one in Korea. Same, everywhere we were. So I met with the general, and I said, "Wow, it's the same everywhere you go." And he said, "Strong cultures travel far." I said, "Huh?" He goes, "That tells you how strong the culture is." Here's the interesting thing about baseball. Every member of the Royals I've ever met, I met these guys. You all speak the same language. I met with Joey Greeny, who is a good friend of mine, who is with the Royals organization. He says the same thing. We had Jason Adam came into the Rays, and he spoke about the Royals in a certain way. I'm like, okay. You said it earlier in this conversation. It starts at the top. The person that's not an accident. This was intentional, how all of you are saying the same thing, speaking the same language. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, there is someone who orchestrated this, who created this by design, not by default. And so my question is, how do you do that?
Well, it's a great question. And I wasn't perfectly sure. I mean, Dayton modeled it unbelievably well for us, and we knew honor we had of representing the Kansas City Royals and the integrity and the dignified way Dayton represented the organization and his standards of excellence. And so I felt responsibility to live up to that. And I think he ingrained that into every person who put on a Royals uniform. And so with the Texas Rangers, we're attempting to do the same. I mean, when I took the job with the Rangers, I told all of our employees that I really have two main goals for our organization. The first of which is that we win championships. That's number one, that we're paid to win, and that's what our fans deserve. And the second is that every member of our organization, whether it's a player, staff member, coach, front office, every person who comes through the Rangers is developed in some way that we help them achieve their dreams and aspirations either within the game or outside the game. And that's investment in our people. And I think that speaks to the culture. Now, how we do that, we kind of established 3 core values that we live by as an organization, which I think are very, they're very helpful for us in terms of identifying, 1, the right people, and 2, the standards for the organization. And those have been very, I think they've given us a lot of direction, and they're very just simple and basic. There's no real room for interpretation with them, and I think that's given clarity to everybody. So 1, laying out the vision and the standards, and then 2, the way we're going to achieve it. That's kind of how we've done it. But but by no means do we have it all figured out. I say that like last year was a very humbling year. Our hope is that that this continues and we get back on to kind of a run of success here.
Are you comfortable sharing the 3 values?
Yeah,
or would you,
yeah, it's very basic. It's nothing that you guys haven't heard before, don't already know. But the first of which is be a good teammate. Be a good teammate. It's about the collective group. It's be a good teammate on a daily basis. Are you showing up worried about yourself, or are you worried about what you can do for the collective group, and be a good teammate and everything that kind of goes into that. The second one is compete with passion. The game is so hard. You fail more than you succeed. I think you have to be highly competitive to be good at this game, and you have to love it. The love has to be there. So we look for people who are competitive, who also have a love of the game, whether it's we're hiring a front office member or we're looking for a player in the draft or for a big league free agent. Compete with passion. And one of the things we point out about these 2 core values is that those are attitudes or choices. 66% of our values are about the character, so to speak, the choice, and less about the talent. The last one we describe as dominate the fundamentals. And it's very basic. It means, 1, just sort of overarching, we want to be a fundamentally sound organization and team. But secondly, what makes you successful in your respective job, whether you're the general manager, the president, the coach on the field, the third base coach, you're a pitcher, a hitter. What are the fundamental aspects of what makes you successful? Let's dominate those. Let's not chase all of your weaknesses. Let's not ask you to be somebody you're not. But whatever your respective job is, dominate the fundamental aspects of that. And if you do, we will be successful collectively. So, I don't know if they're right or wrong, but they've given our organization a lot of direction, and it's been very good for us. And but there are a lot of different core values and things that successful organizations have, and these happen to be ours.
That's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, to kind of couple up with what you said, I think when you truly are invested in the person, not just the player. The first time I met Dayton, or the first time I met Haas, first time I met Dayton, he was truly cared about who I was, not just as a player, but as a person, truly cared about my family. And, I was 18 the first time I met him. Dayton always asked me, it's the same way we always ask each other. It's like, how's your family doing? When's the last time? Because we haven't seen each other. When you actually care about a person, instead of just the player, it makes you want to go above and beyond for whoever's above you. I would do anything for CY, do anything for Haas, Moilo, because they care about me and my family, and that's an important role to feel safe in the baseball clubhouse community. And every single time we see each other, it's like we didn't skip a beat, because we we have that. We generally care about each other. And that's what I think Dayton and CY are building from top to bottom, is they truly care about every single person, not just the players, not just the staff, but, the people in the ticket office, the people in the, working the grounds crew. They genuinely care about how those people are, and you see it filter down into, the play and performance as players.
Yeah. And CY, man, that's so true. And speaking of family, I vividly remember when you guys won the World Series, watching the TV, final out made in Arizona, I went right up to the press box, and you Liz right there with the kids huddling up.
Yeah.
So just speak on the importance of, you're a successful big leaguer, you get done with a successful career, you can very easily, be at home and be a father, but your passion for leadership, to go on and pursue this GM and MLB role, I know you want to speak on Liz a little bit, but that's got to be.
No, Haas, I appreciate you asking. All of us know how important family is. And, I would say that really, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was done. I knew, at that point, I'd been in the game close to 20 years. It's kind of all I knew. And I felt a little bit of responsibility to remain in the game because I love it, and so I didn't know what that looked like. I had no aspirations of being a general manager. I just felt like I wanted to stay in the game and continue to learn, and whatever that would lead to, it would naturally happen. But part of that is having a family at home that was willing to support me with that. And Liz, my wife, has been wonderful in that. And I think it's part of her way of getting me out of the house, keeping me busy. But one of the important things for me was that my kids see me work. I wanted to model a work ethic. We have a mantra at home that if you want something in life, you better be willing to work for it, and it's something we've tried to instill in our children. And I guess the last thing, and this is probably it's a blessing and a curse, but I love winning. I highly competitive, and I love winning, and the opportunity to try to pursue more world championships, for me, it just drives me, and it's just something I can't let go of. And so I at my core, I want to be part of something great. I got to experience it as a player. I saw what it meant to our community, a community that I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth, in 2023 when we brought our first world championship home with the Rangers. And I want to continue to pursue that. I love it. And, at times there's a trade-off and a sacrifice. I miss a lot of my kids' activities, but when I'm home, I try to be present. And it's also given us an experience for our children that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So I haven't figured out the balance. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I do know I have a great family at home with a wife who's allowed me to do this, and I'm extremely grateful because without her, I couldn't do any of it.